Here.
Kelly is not here. He did. Oh, I apologize. Okay, do you want me to do the roll call again?
Yeah.
Okay, calling to order the July 15, 2024 meeting of the Municipal Authority. At this time, I will do a roll call. Walter Borginis.
Here.
Tom Greco.
Yeah.
Steve Mackel.
Here.
Maria Kane here. Tim Kelly is not here. He did advise me that he could not be here due to conflicts with his family. And let me see, at this point, we should stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this point, I'll ask if the board has had an opportunity to review the agenda that has been provided. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Walter, seconded by Steve. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, at this point, we'll take public comment on any agenda items only. Is it something on the agenda that you're here to talk about, or, okay, what item is it? Did you have a chance to look at it? I'm sorry, say your name again? Osario? Okay. Yes, it is. No, I think.
We spoke about this last.
Yes, I recall, and we do have a lot of materials that have been circulated. I think we saw your letter among the materials, and Mr. Porter is, has visited the property and has a recommendation, I'm sure, for us. Thank you, Steve. Not as bad as I thought. So, I mean, we will be voting on that matter. I don't,
You want to move it up on the agenda, Maria?
I mean, I suppose we could. I don't have a problem with that. Has everyone?
We are here just in case you have a question for us, if any.
No, I appreciate it. It's,
anything that we can
I thought the
clarify.
information went on both properties. I'm assuming you're the owner of the other property.
Yes.
We own the property.
Oh, you own the property
They're
together.
4111.
Okay, both 4111. Okay.
So we'll be sitting there.
Well,
The report, I can have you more than us.
yes. Okay, so we'll take that item first, so that you don't have to stay through the whole meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Again, does anybody have a problem with that? Is everybody prepared?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so this is item number 12.1, new business. Discussion and possible action on the William Lewis Homestead located at 4111 Goshen Road. A request for I don't know that I like the word mandatory there, but so I would like to rephrase that motion for the agenda. It should say request for sewer hookup exemption. Is the property, can I have a motion for an exemption for 4111 Goshen Road to exempt it from the hookup?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Steve, seconded by Walter. Okay, discussion. Anybody have any questions?
Dave, you're in agreement, I guess?
Yeah, so in your agenda packet, I wrote a letter dated July 12th. It does have the attached letter from the residents of 4111 Goshen Road. I did visit the property on June 21st after the last authority meeting. They were gracious enough to let me view the inside of the dwelling, where the building lateral leaves the dwelling. The route of that building lateral is a little peculiar in that it extends out of the foundation wall, kind of makes a 90-degree turn under what used to be a kitchen garden for the original dwelling. In fact, the stone wall for that kitchen garden is still in place. They've since done some remodeling, if you will, inside the kitchen garden outside there. But that cast iron pipe does extend beyond that kitchen garden wall, and just outside of the wall of that kitchen garden is the septic tank. So excavation of the septic tank would be required. Typically, you just crush the bottom and connect it up, but because it's so close to that wall, it appears it would need to be removed in order to connect a new pipe for gravity connection to the sanitary sewer system, or to connect that up with a grinder pump for a low pressure connection. Coupled with that, just adjacent to the area where the septic system is ruins from an old bank foundation. I don't know if it was a bank barn. I don't recall if it was a bank barn at the time, but it's clear where the excavation into the slope was. The topography has changed there. It's sloped a little bit differently there, and there's actually exposed portions of that remnant foundation remaining. And the archaeology related to that would be any excavation within 20 feet proximity of that foundation wall would need to be documented. Whether they find anything or not, it would still need to be documented, so that puts additional burden on the property owners. So the cast iron pipe itself, you'd need a rather delicate excavation to be able to decommission the on-lot system, so that pipe doesn't get jostled or damaged during installation. And coupled with the historic nature of the dwelling and the property itself, my recommendation would be to grant the exemption from the requirement to connect at this time, so as long as the on-lot system functions properly. And if in the future it shows that the system fails or begins to fail, that they seek permitting for an on-lot system elsewhere on the property prior to immediate connection. If they aren't able to find another location for an on-lot system, obviously the connection to public sewer would then have to be undertaken. It's not going to be, it's going to be a costly endeavor, just because it's going to require specialized construction, in my opinion.
Is this on the National Historic Register, the property?
Not yet. The county, the letter,
Yeah, I saw that.
they are in the process.
Rosario, can I have you go to the mic just so that it gets picked up?
Not yet.
Yeah, that's what and that's what I'm kind of concerned about too. Like if it's possibly going to be on the National Historic Register, I mean, by us not granting the exemption, are we, in effect, I know if it's not there, not on the registry yet, I mean, you can't violate any of the terms of that status, but I mean, knowing that it's in the process, are we doing anything that, is,
I think
Potentially.
not granting the exemption, we can only make things worse.
yeah. And that's why I'm wondering, are the options perhaps to wait to take any action and give them kind of a,
Again, I really think your action on this, and it probably is not worded well in the motion, is you're sending it back. So the township is the one that requires it.
okay,
And so the authority is only going to be recommending back to the township that they not have to. And so I'll have to put it on the township agenda for the Board of Supervisors to actually officially take action of whether or not, because it's the township's ordinance.
right,
And they haven't given you the authority to waive that, so they have to waive it.
they have to waive it, right? And I guess if we're gonna be making a recommendation, should our recommendation be kind of, time, should there be some kind of a time frame to it as to,
Well, the things the delicacies of this that Dave described aren't going away,
yeah,
right? So I don't know that you need to put any time constraint on your recommendation at this point. Whether it gets on the registry or doesn't get on the registry just seems sort of inapposite to what you guys are doing. And, you know, I think that it sounds to me like granting the exemption is the right move. And regardless of whether it gets on registry or not, it's still the right move, I think.
Okay. And then what about
Because it's
the,
certainly of local historic significance.
for
even if
sure,
it
for sure.
doesn't
And we
end
wouldn't
up on the
wanna
National Registry.
do anything to you know, to disturb, you know, the historical significance of
And I think it's
any of the
important-
structures.
I think it's important for the authority to understand as well that even with the deferment option that's in the ordinance, it requires that owners provide testing of their own lot system, or at least a pump out report that they're maintaining their system properly. That exemption, the owners would still have to fulfill that commitment. So
And
if they get their
we,
system,
and
right,
we get that information, the municipal authority, right? So, and this is what I'm saying, like, yes, it's the township's ordinance, you know, they grant the exemption. But yet, we're the ones who have to make sure that this on-lot system is, you know, continuing to,
Well,
function
actually,
properly
I think you're only responsible for systems that hook up to your system. In other words, I think on-lot is
so
actually
why don't
being,
they just go to the township then? Why do
Because-
we have to do this?
be-
Is
because-
this like a, you know,
well, because you're making a decision that two EDUs, like if with the one last month and the one this month, will not be connecting. Now, in this case, I believe that Rosario's actually paid the tap-in fee. But if the tap-in fee is not paid, there's there's revenue that you counted on from the connection. And so therefore, you just need to understand that you're waiving that revenue, you know, in that process.
well, maybe that's all we're doing then. I
You
mean,
know.
should this motion be we're waiving, like, I'm just,
But
like,
but
I
the
don't really
connection is
feel
what you're
comfortable making, you know, kind of going through the motions of something that we really have no authority to be doing. You know, it's like we all have better things to be doing with our time.
You know, maybe you have a difference.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy to look at all of this and I think it makes sense and, you know, but I mean, if our job is to give them an exemption, then we'll do it. But why should we be making a recommendation to the township when we have?
I
It's
guess
really
the
not
reason
our,
that you'd make a recommendation to the township is that your professional has the expertise and has been the one to look at this. Theirs probably won't look at it in that level of detail at this point. Other
why
than
don't we
that,
authorize our professional to go to the township meeting and either recommend or not recommend whether or not the exemption be granted?
yeah, that would make some sense as well, I think.
But I think it would help if you endorse it ready for this year, because it will.
Well,
speed
I
up
think
the
what we
process.
can, I appreciate that, and I think what we can do, like Steve is saying, that we can accept the fact that, you know, that we are no longer going to have those EDUs in our system and in our, you know, any of the revenues that comes along with that, and et cetera, that we can accept that fact.
I mean, it's
We can-
almost an opportunity for you to oppose if you think, oh my God, this revenue is so important.
Yep.
We don't
I
want
like
this to
that. We
happen.
don't
right.
oppose the
that's
exemption.
exactly, you took the
I-
words right out of
I
my
like
mouth.
it.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly,
a,
was-
I feel
yes.
comfortable with that.
Yep.
You know, because, you know, I'm not here to say, well, you know,
And I don't know if schedules align, but on this one, since, you know, these guys have gone pretty far down the road with Dave, maybe you also want to authorize him to attend
absolutely.
or send something, on behalf of this authority.
And the
Uh,
Boot Road project the Boot Road one that you approved last time will also be on the next agenda for the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
So you would only be sending Dave, like you could send Dave to represent both for you, and it would be a one-time visit.
And I want to add that you are correct. We paid the hookup fees almost immediately as we received it. And every year since 2013, whatever it was, we have sent the inspection every year to Macomb. We've done the sewer inspection. That's the way it's done. I mean, but anyhow, we call them the sewer every year because we
That's
have
what I'm
to
saying. It's up to you.
empty, we clean the septic. That's the
Yeah.
metro maintain.
Yeah, it's almost as if our board should acknowledge what has been done to date as well and give a report through our professional, Dave Porter, as to the documentation that's been provided by the homeowners as to their functioning on-lot system.
Right.
And as to, Dave Porter's findings as to, the implications of the exemption.
Just I wanna clarify.
And
one
his
other-
final recommendation, which,
Yes.
and we can authorize him to do that. I mean,
I think your motion would be to not oppose the exemption and to send Dave to express that to the
I
to
wanna
relate
also
that to the,
clarify another issue with the issue of the
supervisors.
National Register. It's eligible for it. Whether it's gonna go on it, we don't know, but the house is in the process of preservation as a class 2 resources. Township with the new ordinance, the township has. So right now it's not on. Sometimes property which are National Register eligible for some reason don't make it through the Pennsylvania Municipal. So that's the hope of the county. It doesn't mean that's.
Yeah.
But for sure will be on the class 2 resource.
and then you're gonna open up your house on the third Wednesday of every June so that
We have
the.
done it already. We have done.
Have you?
We have done.
I'd
it
love to
already,
see it.
And we devoted to whatever the historical society was making as a revenue to the local historical society. He actually was dressed up with another 2 ladies. It was a really fun day to have we felt like steward of the house. I mean.
Yeah,
it belongs to
you
people,
are.
really,
Yeah.
not the house.
And Maria, just in the interest of kicking this horse again while it's down, you recall that all of the sewage enforcement for the septics systems has been taken over by the county now too, right? So the township is sort of out of the mix at this point as well.
So
Although, as Steve pointed out to me, we'll make sure we get a copy of this report that these gentlemen are producing, but on-lot system inspections and all that are county functions at this point.
yeah, so previously in Delaware County, every municipality had their own sewage enforcement officer, SEO, who handled all of the permitting for the design for on-lot sewage disposal systems as well as inspections. Now that's been rescinded and taken over by the county health department. So all of that permitting and inspection and pump out records, that's all being handled on the county level.
Does that mean less revenue for us?
No, not for us, not for the
Not-
municipal.
Not for the
authority.
municipal
Okay.
authority,
They're
it's just for
separate
the
issues.
township.
Yeah, we're
Just the
gonna
town.
stick our fingers in our ears and pretend we didn't hear that because of course that's a fee, which is supposed to just cover
Yeah,
costs.
I mean, it was covering costs.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, but if
We
you're.
don't raise
asking
revenue
for-
without taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do, but. you know.
Anything on-lot sewage disposal related typically is a township function. Anything public sewer is municipal authority.
So what, as far as on-lot sewer systems, what is our role, if any?
The authority's role is really, there's no involvement other than if the on-lot system is to connect to the conveyance system that you manage. If they're going to connect to the conveyance system, then you're part of the process of making sure they do so properly. But other than that, if they don't connect for whatever reason, it really falls upon the township to make them connect based on the way the code is written.
We're a sewer authority and not a septic authority. So until there's sewer,
Yeah.
Less for us to do.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
Can I-
trust me,
can I
you don't
muddy the
want the
waters
other
a
part
little?
of it.
I muddy the waters a little. In the letter that the gentleman provided, it alludes to a 4-foot sinkhole and also an issue that it impacted a neighbor downstream. Are we looking at any future problems here for?
So that
Ron?
that particular issue that the gentleman brought to my attention was before we connected to the public, or before we brought public sewer to that area, they had an issue with a sinkhole adjacent to, if you're looking at the property from the street, adjacent to the driveway to the right. They had some landscaping in front. Directly under the landscaping, there was a sinkhole. What contributed to that particular sinkhole, there's an old stone arch storm culvert from the Spring House on the south side of the road near Spring House Lane that drains underneath of Goshen Road, then takes an angle underneath their driveway and then discharges on the west side of their driveway. During installation of the sanitary sewer system, that portion of that stone arch culvert was collapsing in Goshen Road. In order to keep the road operational, we've replaced that stone arch culvert with a reinforced concrete pipe. As part of that, we had to make a transition between that concrete pipe and the remaining portion of the culvert under the driveway to the discharge point. There's still some remnants of a sinkhole, some subsidence in that area. So that's something that the authority is going to need to keep an eye
So
on.
this is a future potential
Yeah,
project.
it may be something we have to open up and address at some point.
It's
If
been
it-
partially repaired.
Yeah, if it continues to subside, but
And that ties into the neighbor downstream, what he's.
right, so once the public sewer was installed, from the sanitary sewer main, we do lateral stubs, right, for the owners to connect to. It's the same concept. We dig a trench, we put stone down, put a pipe in, backfill it with stone, and then backfill and compact the rest of the way with compacted earth fill, or paving at the top. That stone is to allow for drainage along the sanitary sewer main so that if there's high groundwater, that groundwater can move and get through or out away from the pipe so that it doesn't get into the piping system. Because the area is so wet periodically through the year, that water travels along that trench. And some of it was coming out where the sanitary sewer lateral stub was located. So at one point, while active construction was still underway, our inspector worked with the contractor to put some under draining in there to get that water out. There has been some other areas on the property adjacent to where that location is, and actually on the other side of the stream as well, that water has come out of the ground adjacent to the stream corridor itself. In addition to that, along the shoulder of Goshen Road, it looks like there seems to be some evidence of water runoff from the road itself, leaving the highway, getting into the stream corridor, as well as across the street, there's another stormwater pond and spring on property on the west side of Spring House Lane, not the one that has the main spring house, but on the opposite side of that street. And it looks like there's some stormwater discharge that may be getting across Goshen Road and into the stream there. So I did observe a couple of locations downstream from their property on the neighbor's property where the embankment has kind of subsided. So you're looking at like a 1 or 2 foot section of earth just adjacent to where the stream flow is that's gotten saturated or undermined or undercut, and then it just slops off into the stream. So that's obviously something we want to keep an eye on. I don't know that 100% of it is related to the sewer project. It looks like there's some that may be surface drainage that's causing some of it. So that's in a sense what I observed when they brought that to my attention during the site visit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering on all of these drainage issues and, some of the observations that are in the letter. I mean, are we responsible at all for following up on these things or managing them at all?
Responsible for following up on all the stuff.
Well,
that
he's saying
Dave
that
just mentioned.
what percentage is our responsibility, you know what I mean, or due to the installation, of the sewer,
Yeah.
and.
It's a very subjective.
Yeah, I'd be sitting here today saying that's
Yeah.
all the township's responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about storm sewer issues and stormwater runoff, and
Yeah,
I heard stormwater a lot more than I heard sewer in that description, and I think it's
I have
somebody
no-
else's.
I have no doubt that there is some movement of water in the sanitary sewer trench itself, and it's coming out through the lateral stub location. That particular location was remedied, but there are other locations where, water is observed coming out of the embankment of the stream, not the bottom or, the main stream corridor itself. So there are some other spring seeps that have emerged that are coming out. Whether it's related to the sewer installation or if it's just because things move over time, it's very difficult to make that determination just by,
It's an area full of underground water.
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
just us. I mean,
Right.
Toipa Valley is full that way. And I have to say also, I mean, to add to what you're saying, the last few years, we had these huge downpours of rain, which
Yeah.
really dumps a lot of water on the road. When the roads was repaved, the some of the geometry was slightly changed. Possible
Mhm.
it's run. Something you guys have to monitor. Much to do.
Yeah.
We discussed this online.
Yes.
Was this the house with, the artesian well too? Or that was the
Yeah,
other one?
That was.
No, that was the one on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, so I guess we will vote now. Moving on. Moving up, we're gonna go up the agenda. So just rephrasing the motion, to not oppose the exemption, for the sewer, connection for 4111 Goshen Road. And to, recommend or to authorize our engineer, Dave Porter from McCumbee Engineers, to, report to the Board of Supervisors our position of no opposition to that exemption. And I think we had the motion and it was seconded unless you guys want to
I
retract
think
that.
since you rephrased it, I
I've
think,
just
why don't you
rephrased
just pull a second that way and let's make sure we get in the minutes.
Okay,
I'll second.
Appropriate.
okay, so I'm getting a second from Steve on the record on that, and all those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, that motion passes. All right, thank you very much. Thanks for all of the information too, and yeah. So long. Okay. I don't even think we approved the minutes from last meeting, so everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes from the June 17, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Second from Tom. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. All right, at this point, do we have any financial report at all, Steve?
I do. I do.
Okay, great. I think we had some stuff in our packet.
Thanks.
Sorry, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Try not to do that. Try not to do that. So, this is the, actually financial position as of May. You will see that we have roughly about $11 million available in the month of May.
Yeah.
And most of that you can see is in the operating accounts. And most of that falls under the Fund 73. And what I will tell you is even most of that is related to 1.7 million in tap-in fees that you can see if you turn to page 3. I would make note, and I apologize, I didn't catch this sooner. I will go back and correct this. They're showing a negative 391, 364 on page 1 of the budget worksheet under Marple treatment charges. That number should not be there. I need to find out why. It was entered down below properly under RHM. I don't know how it got entered up on the top as a debit against the revenues. So I will get that corrected. With that correction, instead of being negative 57, you're actually up about 127 or 170, or I'm sorry, 270 for that, for the SR2, and then your CDCA or SR3 is showing roughly about 629,000. I will tell you, the loan payment is on the agenda tonight, which will go into this, that is not showing, which will bring us under. We'll probably have to take some money from the capital to cover that and offset that, which we knew we would. So, I mean, it's not anything that we didn't know. The good news is the tap-in fees have been high, so that number will cover a lot of what we had, but we'll do the other. So, but that's your monthly, your May monthly report. Obviously enough cash to do what you need to do, and just a matter of moving some funds around and do that. I will take any questions that you have. I will tell you, this doesn't show the June billing. The June billing will second quarter. That'll probably show up in the July report, because usually we bill in July for the June billing.
Okay, everything was on time as far as those billings were concerned?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our bond payments come out of which one?
The bond payments come out of line on page 4, the line, almost all the way at the bottom where you see debts expenses.
Okay, debt expenses, got it. Okay.
And if you look on page 2, you'll see debt expenses under SR 272. That number will also get added to that number to cover for the next payment. So there's enough money to cover for the next payment.
Gotcha, I see.
Steve, you said there was 1.7 in tap-in fees?
Yes, if you look at, unless I looked at it
I
wrong.
see 1,025,000 on page 3 and then 28,000 on page 1. So that's like 1,060,000.
I'm looking,
I see the current actual year at 1.7
yeah,
on page 3.
on page 3, line number 73, 364, 27115, which is really at the bottom under sewer charges.
Gotcha. Okay, I was looking at current year remaining. Gotcha. Sorry.
We're actually over what we had anticipated by that amount. Which isn't surprising because there was some stuff that we were still waiting on from a couple different sources that came in afterwards.
Are we anticipating, well, I guess we're fiscal year?
Your fiscal year?
Yeah, are we?
January to January.
Oh,
I mean, January to December.
Okay, so what do we anticipate by way of tap-in fees? What are we expecting for the last?
I wouldn't expect a whole lot more. I think things are kind of slowing down. There's a potentially a couple projects in the works that may or may not come between now and the end of the year. But I don't think anything that's going to be major. I think we've talked about the connection point for one of the developers and some funding that they've given us ahead of time. So I don't know how much of that offset they're going to use for their EDUs. Because that could be roughly what, about 60,000 if I remember right. Is that about right?
Mhm.
So that could be another 60 if they decide to pay that versus using some of their reserve. And then if they do a few more of the projects they're talking about, it could be a few more dollars. I don't expect any really big numbers the rest of the year in where we are. I think most of the cap in fees that we're gonna receive, we've already received for this year. That said, there are a couple developer projects that could turn, and if those turn, then it would be different.
Anybody else have any questions for Steve? And if we have any that come up after the meeting, I'm sure you'd be happy to answer.
Please feel free to send me, I know I just gave these to you tonight. Literally, I was finishing them up right before the meeting, so
We really appreciate it. I mean, at least it gives us something to.
Yep.
Kind
we're
of-
working on June's. We just have one piece of June that's missing. From the bank statements, and we haven't gotten that yet. As soon as we
Okay.
get those, we'll get you the June statements.
Okay.
For sure have those in August, hopefully have both June and July at that point.
Right, and at this point, if that concludes your financial.
That's all I have unless you have any more questions.
Dave, Porter, engineers report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Two of the items really in my report are on as separate agenda items, one of which we've already addressed. So the other larger item for discussion with the authority, the ongoing contractor quotes for rehab of the crane at Ellis Preserve Pump Station. We actually received one other quote over the last month, but that contractor mistakenly quoted demo of the crane and not repair. So they gave us a cost to completely take it down. So we're waiting on a revised quote from that contractor. We'll have some things that are kind of outstanding as far as the NOT for the NPDS permit, which is on my plate to complete. We are working on French Road, an evaluation of an alternative for either replacement of that sewer line or implementation of two structures for maintenance of that line. I need to reach out to that property owner on the upstream side to get permission to complete some survey work on that driveway to look at possibly exploring a sanitary sewer easement for access to that upper portion of the sewer line. The bioxide system proposal from Evoqua, which is now Xylem, was received last month. I just have not had time to evaluate that proposal, make a recommendation to the authority at this time, but we do have a proposal in hand from them finally. I have not seen any word or heard any word from the local share, the DCED on the local share grant for 2024. It's supposed to be the second quarter of 2024, so my ears are out waiting for some news on that. We did receive another maintenance record from our friends at Luigi and Giovanni Caterers. So they continue to fulfill their monthly obligation for clean out. Just no word from their engineer since the last time I spoke with them, which was I think the day before the last authority meeting.
I say
So-
supposed to be doing that monthly,
They are, and they have been.
and they have been.
Yeah,
okay.
they've now provided, I think that there's 3 or 4 consecutive months of O&M records.
Okay, and no signs of any backups, area, neighboring properties?
Yeah, we haven't had any complaints either. So far it seems to be holding steady.
Yeah,
Um,
and maybe perhaps because the pressure is on to.
Yeah.
Trap clean.
Yes. Yeah, could be magically, right? So, Stony Knoll, the 17 lot subdivision that Poling Builders is working on, that's the agenda item that is forthcoming. They are probably about 3/4 of the way done with the sanitary sewer install at this point. Ellis Preserve is ongoing for capacity consistency letters for tenants that are occupying the newly constructed buildings in the commercial component. And that concludes the engineer's report this month.
Does anybody else have any questions for Dave?
No.
Oh, we're not getting any complaints or anything. I'm just thinking about that dioxide thing. We're not getting complaints about odors or that.
I don't have any. Dave, you haven't got any. We're, KBX is out there on a daily basis throughout the week. And so they're addressing anything that they can and, staying on top of that.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Dave. We'll head back to the agenda then at this point. Next on the agenda, well, Steve, I guess, is there an operation?
Yeah, so
management
that, you have the RHM flow, continue to watch that.
Yeah,
We continue to have this up and down experience with the rain. And so we know we have I&I issues. You will see within the KBX report, they've continued to do some line videoing and things like that, trying to see where issues are. So we're actively working that, and we'll continue to actively work that with them moving forward. And our team is working with them to just make sure that we hit the areas that we know we have problems, but then also pick up some new areas just to try to see if we can start getting a pretty good idea of what our system's condition is. So you have that in front of you. And those would be the things that I would bring up from our report.
does anybody have any questions for Steve? All right, moving on. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Consider approving the bills and check register dated July 15, 2024, totaling $48,523.58. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion from Walter, second from Tom. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consider approving the bond payment totaling $1,062,261.61 to the Guaranteed Sewer Revenue Bond Series 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there a reason why we're calling it? Maybe I'm wrong, but is this the first time I'm seeing it called the Guaranteed Sewer Revenue Bond? I mean, I know it's been guaranteed by the township. Is that what they mean by that?
Yeah, that's how it's labeled.
Okay.
That's how they labeled it
Okay.
on their sheet. And so I just kept it that way. If you pull up the payment or that we're making, it says guaranteed. I mean,
Yeah.
I just literally took it right off of that.
Gotcha. Just, I don't know, it just stuck out to me, but that's great. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, consider approving the following escrow release payments for completed work. $12,000 to the Estate of Thomas Falkie at 347 Echo Valley Lane and $5,000 to Steven Everett at 341 Crum Creek Lane. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Walter. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Tom. Any questions or comments on this one?
I would make note that both of these were houses that went to sale. And so they had outstanding connection to the sewer before they closed. And so that's what these were.
Interesting, great. Okay. And how is that working as far as notification to the authority as far as a sale?
So typically what's happens is when they come in to do their paperwork for their certificate of occupancy, township tells them that they need to be connected. If they're not going to be able to be connected prior to the sale, I do an agreement with them where they escrow the cost of the connection. That one by Everett's a little lower than the other one because he was doing the work himself.
Oh, interesting,
Um,
okay,
And then Dave goes out and inspects and then we release the escrow from there.
gotcha. All right, and all of that happened for these two.
All that happened with these.
See all the work going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, stuff's happening.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Moving on. Consider approving a refund of $218.03 to 3412 Muirwood Drive for a sewer bill overpayment. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Second from Walter. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on, consider approving the Municipal Authority Public Sewer Improvements escrow release number 1 for Stony Knoll in the amount of $125,617. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Steve,
Second.
second from Walter. I thought I had a question on this one, or who would be best in walking?
So let me
this?
just, let me kind of tee it up for you,
Yeah.
and you still may have a question, and I'll let
Yeah.
you defer to Dave. So, because Dave's doing all the inspections on site. This developer, normally developers would put up like a bond or would put up a letter of credit. This developer chose to put up cash. And so we actually have the cash on hand in the bank. I had to set up a separate bank account. You probably remember I made everybody sign on the resolution for that, and then I turned around and made some of you sign as signatures for that. And so we have a separate account that we write this off of. It's, as it earns interest, the developer gets the interest. That's the way it's set. I believe the original for this was roughly about 250, about 260,000, something like that.
Tell you in 1 second exactly what it was. $235,962.10.
So that was what the original was. This is the first release, as Dave said, that we roughly thought that Dave said they've roughly completed about, what'd you say, 3/4 of the project already. So my guess is you'll have another one next month, because they're paying their contractors as we write the checks to them. And so that's how that's working. So it's a little different than a bond release that you would normally vote on, and then I would sign off on it, and Dave would sign off on it. There'd be a letter that goes to the bond company. This, we're actually writing a check, and that's why the way it's being worded.
I just thought the numbers weren't making sense to me in what we were given, that's all. Find it here. But it's not. Wow. So it says $125,617, and then it says total remaining $88,894 on that. But yet, on the previous page, it says $110,345.10. So in the letter signed by Dave, it says original escrow, requested reduction, amount approved for release, which is the $125,617, and then it has remaining escrow at $110,345.10, but yet the report sheet says that the remaining escrow is $88,894. So I was just wondering what that meant.
What report sheet are you referring to, Maria?
What was
Okay,
given to
I
us.
think what you're gonna see is that the work, I'm sorry. I think what you're gonna see is that the work left to be done was the 80 whatever thousand. There's also a retainage that we require, even though they complete so much of the work. Is it 10%?
10%.
Correct.
There's a 10% retainage. So if you look at that, if you took the 10% retainage from the 110,000, you would get down to the 88,000.
Correct. And Maria, if you look at page 9 of the PDF of the authority agenda,
That's the next page.
there's an
Okay.
attachment. My spreadsheet there identifies on page 2 of my spreadsheet. On the right-hand side, the total remaining is 88,894.
Oh,
dollars,
gotcha,
and then
okay.
there's the
And
10% contingency, and that's set forth in the Municipality Authorities Act as well as the MPC, where we can require 110% of the proposed cost of the improvements to be put up in financial security. So that remaining 10% will be held until they're complete. And then theoretically, the last portion that gets released, if they're releasing as-built or whatever it is at the end of the job, we'll release that, and then any contingency money remaining. And at the same time, they'll put up a maintenance bond amount, or maybe it's maintenance cash amount, and 15% of the actual value of the cost of the improvements constructed for a period of 18 months.
All right, so this will be sticking around for a little while longer. for us.
I would suspect maybe another 2-3 months tops.
Okay,
We'll finish
They
up.
are, they are moving very
Yep.
quickly on the public improvements.
yeah,
Not as fast as I've ever seen a developer move.
And because it's cash, I'm sure as soon as they're done, they're gonna say, hey,
They're
check it,
driving.
make sure we can get it released.
Which I'm hoping they do quickly, because I only got a very small number of checks on these two, for both the township and for this account. So,
okay. All right, and so you're happy with this, I'm assuming, Dave, since it coincides with your
That is correct.
conversation. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and old business, I don't see any public comment. Public has since left. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.